don't have it on the board yet, huh?
I don't think that's 25 yet.
There's not a potential.
No, she moved 100 and.
Oh,
Didn't she
working
move?
on it.
Finish that?
I've got 173.
Submitted, right? So
Yeah,
that's-
already submitted. I get another.
Then show her, because wait, you gotta do the same thing.
All right.
Come on,
Yeah,
beat the upline leader.
All right.
Show everybody else. Mr. Tony already updated his.
I
All right.
know what all I'm.
Well, you don't have a. You're not
Mr.
up here.
Oscar, did you update yours?
Write your name up there.
Wait.
But that means because you haven't put
You
yours
didn't write it up there. No one. No
Yeah,
one's
we gotta
designated.
write
God, write it up. Oscar, you put yours, you picked up 25 grand, right? Did you check it?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
He's like, yeah, the minute I did it.
All right. So
Okay, so what are your goals for October? Like, do you
don't
need
worry
to
about that
get
yet. We'll talk. We're going to talk about that today, I'm sure.
Okay.
So check, Dorinda. So just check in
October, right?
When did you do it?
I did it in October.
Just in October. So check for locking in advances. Do a little result
Tally.
check. Just check it. Do a dash.
Here? The tally mark.
Yeah. One. Yep. No.
Yeah.
Up and down dash.
Like this. Tally mark, yeah.
Yeah, like you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes, that's
Good job.
Assets.
Where's the-
I did September. Yeah, pen?
okay, that's fine.
Just got my pen.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about, what is all of this other stuff?
I'll go
Assets.
over it. You
Okay.
haven't done that yet.
What's up, y'all? How is everybody doing? Very, very good. It's kind of fun. So, what I wanted to do is if you put your name on some business in the last week, if you could please come up here. Whether it was an IBA or an investment or an insurance policy, anything. If you could come up, if you help something happen, come on up. Right, so first of all, look, like this isn't the last week, y'all. This is not the last year. This is the last week. This is a good thing. Okay, so what's happening right now is most of the people here are like, good for you, right? And so, no, like, this is the process. These are all the folks in the last week that have put their name on some version of. And so, if we take 30 seconds, tell a high-level story. Anyone who wants to go, we don't have to go in order, go to the. But what it was and how it felt to make that happen. Anybody? Tony, start.
All right. So I turned an IBA this week.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I've been working with her for say 3 months. She's in school, so maintaining the relationship. Didn't really pressure her on it. So I did give vetoes as far as what's happening.
No, just but went through. Basically, so here's the thing. She's been on my graph board for about 3 months. Went through, cleared the hurdle of time and energy. Went through, made that happen, and got the paper right. So there's a way to explain the story within our language that everyone would understand.
That's my story.
Way to go, Tony! Please, Don.
I've been working with a couple. This is a go back. We went back and delivered the FNA. They still were unsure. So we went back yesterday and Bob has developed kind of a strategic game plan. So it's the FNA, but not as flowery, just more succinct information. She was really worried. She said, all I have is this retirement. And when I'm done, I'm not going to have any money left. So through our strategic game plan, we're able to show her that her goals are met. She wanted to keep the same amount of income now as in the future, and we were able to do that for her. So that's a really rewarding feeling.
Dorinda.
Yes. I actually met with two sisters, and Wade and I we actually met with a mother and two sisters. But the two sisters were what we were really focused on. We rolled 2 IRAs, one for each of them over, which was great. And Wade was wonderful because he was on the call, and one of the sisters was ready and gung ho. And I know we don't usually do them together. Usually it would be an individual thing that we do. But it just happened to be that I was really working with one sister and the other sister kind of wanted to be in the room. And we ended up rolling both of them over. And the one sister that was really not supposed to be in the room, and she was a little hesitant. Wade, kind of gave her a little press, like, and then before the end of the night, both of them rolled their stuff over. And so that's what happened with that. But then she called me, the sister that was actually hesitant, called me a couple of days later that she wanted to talk about some other stuff, and then I go and talk to her as well, not really expecting anything except for a free cup of coffee. And she told me that she had another windfall of money that she wants me to invest for her. So it was really interesting how starting the conversation, the girl was like, I don't know. And then 2 days later, she's like, yeah, here, now I want to give you $7,000. It's like, okay, I don't know where this comes from, but all right, we'll do it. So it is interesting.
Awesome. Way to go, Derek. Oscar.
For me, I was talking to just that family, but so I've been increasing my value, and then something happened within her family where she ended up with some money. She remembered me, and I told her about the benefits of a lot of things, and she ended up opening up a bunch of accounts that equal 25,000. And now she wants me to talk to one of her friends who have about 100 grand.
Oh, darn.
So,
Okay.
Awesome, sir.
for me,
No, I didn't think we needed, no, go ahead.
I can say on that. No, I just, it was very similar to Dorinda's story where all I was doing was working on my, my market, dialing my market, and then one of my people on my list, he got laid off, and so he had a change in life, and so his 401k had $140,000 in it, and so he's like, "What do I do?" He called me, he's like, "What do I do with this?" And because I had been kept him in the list and working with him, I said, "Come to the office," and then so he dropped off a check to me, not to me, but he dropped off the actual physical check because that's how they do it for 140 grand. And that was kind of a cool experience. So it's one of those things where just working on dialing in your market, dialing in your list, and stuff shows up because people don't have anyone to talk to. The access gap is real, and so keep dialing in your market.
Awesome. I would like the really interesting thing about this was we had an IBA and 4 investments, right? So you all understand that a life insurance sale of $91 or a investment of $140,000, like it's a lot easier to pick up a $109 check than it is a $140,000 check, just like in the process, right? You all can understand that, like. Y'all know this is not making sense. If I'm sitting down with somebody and saying, okay, wait, it's fascinating to me that our confidence is that we can get people to write us checks and recommend us for hundreds of thousands of dollars and do like everyone that did this is like, oh, I started with this and ended with this. And I'm laughing. I'm like, we're doing it backwards in a really cool way, right? Because one, it's actually really exciting to talk about the investments. And so we're driving our confidence and we're following our enthusiasm. And we're not sure, like that's really, really powerful. And we want to maintain that culture. And we get to start expanding and saying, look, we get to do multiple things. So I'm fired up, right? So that's good. Next Saturday. Anybody? Next Saturday? Anybody? Next Saturday? Anybody next Saturday? Anybody? Just it's a choice, right? This is what we're talking about. It's a choice to say next Saturday I'm going to be standing. And if you don't raise your hand, you want to ask yourself why. What is it in the next 7 days that's going to prohibit you from making an impact in somebody's life, right? And so we get to talk about that. So one of the things. Okay, so there's a couple things, right? One, it's October, and so Robin's going to come up in a little bit, and we're going to work on kind of the goals and the numbers and kind of continue from last week and get some clarity. I want to show you this that I've got and see that you got that as a tool that I'm using. But part of the conversation that we want to start having is starting to get okay. So Oscar and I yesterday had a really fun conversation, and it was at least fun for one of us. But the conversation, I wanted to spend a minute on this because it's okay if I figured it would, but I wanted to at least have permission. Oscar, I believe, this is my interpretation, and he might disagree with this interpretation, but this was my interpretation, that there was a there was a breakdown when we talk about the fact that if you do it, you can make money. If you teach someone to do it, you can be profitable. And if you can teach someone to teach someone, you can be free. And there was sort of a little bit of a disconnect on what this means and why this is important. And so I wanted to take a couple minutes to, and again, he got it, we were talking about it, I want to make sure this is really, really clear. This is my interpretation of his questions and understanding of where things are, saying, oh, I might have had a hole in the explanation on this. Whether he's got it or not, it's almost irrelevant. I saw that there might be a friction point on where this is and what's important with this. Does that make sense? So I wanted to talk a little bit about what does this mean? If you can do it, you can make money. Because most of the people in this room are here to be the ability to make some money, right or wrong. And so this doesn't sound like a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. What this does, what this breakdown does is it can tell us where our motivation and what we're supposed to or what we have the opportunity to practice, right? If you need to know how to do something, like if the goal in your business life or in anything is to be able to do something, there is a set and a standard that you have to follow. There's a level that you have to get to. The ability to do something. Okay. And this I'm going to ask for a little bit wider berth on this conversation because again, this just came up yesterday, but I didn't want it to go another meeting without us at least starting to address this. So I might make this worse, right? But we will get it better. And if this is the make it worse conversation, I'm sorry, but just give us the time and we'll get through it. And I don't want to spend an hour on this, but I want to spend a little bit of time because I've watched actions and behaviors and I think that there's a friction. I think there's a resistance to this. I think that sometimes we think, Brett, I'm here and you're talking to me about being over there. And so I just need to concentrate on where I am. Yes, I need to know that, but that's not important yet because I'm here. Does that make any sense? I'll give an example. When we were first teaching the lineup and we were going scout team, farm system, graph board, roster, player, starter, captain, coach, team owner. And we were breaking down each one of these, that a starter is a player, and we were running through and doing all that stuff. And we were spending a tremendous amount of time dialing in what player thinks and all of this other stuff. There was a tremendous amount of friction in that point with people going, seriously, we're over here. Why the hell do I have to worry about what's over there? Because I'm over here. And some of it was said to me, some of it was said to each other, some of it was just said in reactions. And that's not a bad thing because sometimes if we're standing over here, it's hard to understand why understanding something that's further in my future, why that's even helpful. Is this making any sense? The reason why this becomes helpful, though, is that the clearer we are on the fact that each step comes in, there's two major priorities. One, if you understand that where you are is going to lead to where you want to get to, and each stage is there, ideally is as we start clearing these, we start developing confidence that we're going to be able to clear these. Because if we can go from here to here, we can go from there to there, right? That's step one. Step two is that the skill of learning is the same, right? So if you're going to do something, you have to have it as clear in your head as you can in order to get your body or mouth to do the best you possibly can in alignment with the picture you have in your head. That make sense? So I built a wall. I had no idea how to build a wall. I built some wall a couple of 25 years ago. I know enough about it, right? We can go through. It's 98% clean. It's good, right? And stuff like that. If Tony came to me and said, I want to build a wall, how do I do it? I could not tell him. Now, that wall will never fall down. It might be here at the end of time. Like, that thing is so because I overcompensated. I probably spent $50 more than I needed to on materials to make sure, because I don't know the leverage points. I don't know, right? If I'm a general contractor, my goal is to spend as little as I possibly can to get the product that is never going to fall down. Does that make sense? Because if I'm the contractor and I spend that $50 extra, that's profit away from my pocket. So my job as a general contractor is, how do I build this wall so that it's safe, it passes OSHA, it doesn't fall down, and I make as much money as possible? Does that make sense?
Yes.
But if I'm doing it and I don't understand, I know the laws, I know the stuff, I know I gotta make sure I anchor it, I know it's gotta get in there, but I'm like, this thing is not falling down. I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna use different screws, I'm gonna do different things. I completely overcompensated on this thing. Because that's not my profession, I was just building a wall, I was doing it. But if Tony's like, man, I wanna do it, what do I do? How do I make sure? I'm like, I have no, like, go YouTube or hire a general contractor, like, or just build it, but understand here, I can give the framework, I can say, okay, we left the anchors, here we go, right, here are the screws we did, I can explain my process, but I can't teach Tony how to build a wall. Does that make sense? Because I don't actually know how to build a wall the way experts know how to build a wall, and that is make sure it doesn't fall down, it's to code, and it's as inexpensive as possible. Those are the three components of building a proper office wall. Does that make sense? Now I said I'll spend the $50 because I couldn't get somebody to do it, and if I was paying someone else, it would have ended up costing me $1,000 more than I did. So I paid $50 more and saved $950. But I did. Is this making any sense? And I'm talking about that because that was the mentality of me doing it. Now, if I wanted to build a side hustle on construction walls and offices, I now have to approach me learning the wall, how to build a wall, vastly different. Because now I've got to learn different codes. And I've got to learn how to explain. Now I hire Tony to help me build the walls. Do I have to teach Tony the codes? No, I have to tell him, put the walls, put the anchors every 17 inches. Tony, and I'm like, and I repeat that. I do go, here's how you measure the studs, this is where it goes. I'm going to get him to do the things that need to be done. I have to know what it is, and I have to be able to direct him with clarity. Here's what you need to do. Does that make sense? Well, Tony, the first time he builds a wall with me, is he going to know how to build walls, or is he going to know how to do certain portion of the actions that I've taught him to do in order to do the things that need to be done within me building the wall? Is that clear? If I want to build a crew of crews, and Tony's a guy that like, man, I can run a team, I've got this. Now I've got to teach Tony how to direct his people, so he has to know the codes the same way I know the codes. He's got to know the ways, he's got to be able to understand the foundations, he's got to be able to know where the anchors, he's got to be able to run a team so that he can direct somebody else to be able to build that wall. Does this make sense? Right? And so what happens is, I think a lot of us go in, and because we're in the do mode, we hold the standard of the do mode to ourselves. Here's the dilemma. It's really hard to master something from the mindset of doing. Because when the mindset of doing is, as long as it doesn't fall down, it's successful. And guess what? It's successful. That wall's done what it needs to do. By Monday, someone's going to come in and tape it because I don't know how to do that crap, right? And it's going to be done, right? So, but it's done. It's going to look like it just fits there. But as long as the doing is the objective, I'm done. I don't have to master. I never have to learn, right? What's the difference between 12 inches and 18 inches and 22 inches when it comes to different anchor screws? I don't even care about any of that stuff because I'm never going to build another wall. So the responsibility was, I just have to know how to write the sale, or I just have to know how to fill out this F&A. I know how to have this conversation. And the standard of it is, let me make sure I know the actions. Does this make sense? But what happens is, if you and I actually take the approach of learning in order to teach, it allows us to start understanding the components without it being a bigger burden. If I knew I was going to build 50 walls instead of one, which I wasn't, but if I was going to build 50 walls, now $50 extra a wall on 50 walls, that starts turning into real money. So it would have made sense for me to say, okay, if I'm going to build 50 walls, I'm going to take a little bit of time and I'm actually going to learn how to do this because that's going to save me time, energy, and money. The reason that I'm talking about this as we start going into what are the numbers or what are the goals or where we're going is I'm in my interactions with us and what we've been doing for a long time. It's very easy to get anchored here because we're convinced this is where we are. But the reality is all of us are any one of these places wherever we want to. You will learn to master it if you understand that you're going to be teaching it way faster than if you learn to do it. And if we develop the habit of doing it without understanding that we're going to be teaching it and having this be our priority, you will have to learn a completely new skill and it will slow us down. Because if you're good, like I people are like, I know how to build a wall. Great. But do you know how to teach it to someone else? Yeah. Tony, I'm going to tell them do this, do this, do this. Great. Then I'm there forever. And so as we move into, we are now transitioning from the learning to the doing mode. My challenge to all of us is to figure out how do you approach this? And there isn't, let me make sure I'm not sure I made this clear. There isn't a wrong. I am not here saying that this is the only way to be. What I'm saying is, my strongest recommendation is we make these decisions so that we don't end up somewhere other than we want to. That we approach something that says, if I'm going to learn it, let me learn to teach it, or let me learn to do it, or let me learn to direct it. And then there's going to be an impact to that at the outset. Right? We talked on Wednesday night, right? The meeting we had on Wednesday night was, here are the concepts. The single best thing that we can start doing is start practicing them even when you're not comfortable. Because the easiest way to learn and master something, it's very hard to master something simply by doing it. It's significantly easier to master something by being confronted with having to teach it. Because you have to find the words. You have to get the concept not only clear in your head, but the words have to come out and they have to get clear into somebody else's head. You have to be able to assess their clarity, receive their feedback, interpret it, and then redirect it in order to make sure that it's what you're actually saying. But it actually is 1,000 times easier to master something from this mindset than from this mindset. 1,000 times easier. Because you find where your holes are. But if we don't understand that we're in the choice of this and we do because I get this feedback. I know I got to teach, but right now I just got to figure out how to do this stuff. That sentence makes sense, doesn't it? I can't teach. Dude, I don't have anyone on my team to teach. I just got to do it. Like, let me just do. Can I just do for a little while? How many of you can imagine people in this room or people around the room or people around the country thinking that sentence makes a lot of sense? It's not a bad thing. That sentence makes sense. And I am not here telling you that sentence isn't right. But I want to introduce to you the plausibility that sentence might actually cost you more than you think it costs you. Because, man, I just got to get this wall up. Great, you're going to pay $50 more than you need to. I was willing to pay the $50. I was fine. I'm like, it's going to take me $50. I'm okay, because I know this thing's never falling down. Because that was my major concern. It's as straight as it can be. The door works, and it's not falling down. Those are my 3 checks. Right? Bob and Don showed up to help me with the door, right? We cut it out, and we put it in, and I'm like, it's going to work. First time I put it up, Don's like, it's not in yet. I just needed to make sure it fit. I'll get it to work, and then, because now those were my measurements. And so if those are your measurements here, there's nothing wrong with that. The disconnect is when those aren't the things you think you want, but those are the actions we take. That's what we want on a Saturday. That's the foundational changes. We start building into this transition from learning to doing. And we start focused on our goals and our numbers and what we're doing with our market and all that other stuff, is keep this choice in the back of our head as to the approach we're taking about our business. Because of course, if you don't have people to teach, you getting yourself to doing it is incredibly important. Not saying it's not. I'm just going to wait to learn how to teach when I have people. No, that doesn't work either. But it's the mindset before. Put ourselves through the paces of being able to explain, right? The conversation that I had with Oscar, which I think we'll integrate into our room, right? The benefit of this is the ability to be okay with being out of sorts. If you're going to start learning a new thing, right, Dorinda, when you started those conversations, right, there might be a part of you that was out of sort. You're like, I don't feel like I know enough to have these conversations. I feel out of sort. It's okay to feel out of sort. It's important to not be satisfied with feeling out of sort. There's a difference between those two spaces. In this conversation, I feel out of sort. I don't feel like this conversation is clear as I want it to be. If I'm not willing to feel out of sorts in this conversation, I don't introduce this conversation until I get it down. But how do I get it down if I don't ever get out of sorts? And that flywheel starts going the negative way. But I'm not satisfied with feeling out of sorts. I'll take this conversation and I'll spend the next week, month getting it clearer and clearer and clearer because I actually really feel that this is an important distinction. And so I'll keep working and practicing on it. I'll keep driving you all crazy. I'll pull your ass in the office, sit you down, put the whiteboard. Hey, does this make sense? Because I don't care how you feel. Like, I don't make fun of me, don't make fun of me. It doesn't matter if I'm out of sorts because I'm okay being out of sorts and I'm not satisfied with being out of sorts. That's how we can start moving this faster. That for me is clearer than perfection isn't the objective. I used to say perfection isn't the objective, which was me trying to say it's okay to feel out of sorts, and but we need to not be satisfied with feeling out of sorts. For me, those are the exact same phrases, it's just a lot clearer. So I'm gonna have Robin come up and work through, but I wanted, as you do this, I'm going to challenge you to challenge yourself. To ask yourself, how are you approaching your business? And how do you want your business approached? And then be able to honor it. If you want to be able to say, Tony, if you're like, man, I just got to make some money. Like, that's, nothing else matters right now. I just got to get myself to do it. Tell me the things that I got to do. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing. But then we get to be on the same page. And I'll ask you, what I would do is here would be that interaction. I totally get that. Are you open to having a discussion about it? So that I could introduce another couple points of view so that we know that you're making those decisions in the impact of it. That's a safe conversation, isn't it? Because that's how we get to navigate. So, and help them through this process. So I'm very, very, very excited about the fact that we're starting to grow, that the conversations are building, that the people are out, that there's multiple things that are happening, that we're setting goals, that we're identifying this stuff, that we're starting to attack our markets, that we're growing and we're learning how to communicate, because it's really, 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 really critical. We're learning how to ask questions and then we're receiving the feedback. There's some amazing things that are happening. And I'm incredibly excited about that. And so this was me trying to encourage, but in the conversation with Oscar, I realized that there could be a disconnect, because if anyone's doing this, but they're saying this, we're out of alignment. And that's only going to add friction to our relationship, and that doesn't serve us. So let's get on the same page. Let's know where we're going. Let's understand the foundations of learning and teaching and doing and all of that other stuff, and let's make October happen. So very excited. The awesome Robin speaks.
Morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good. Good. So the contest that we put up numbers for and checks and balances and all that good stuff, that is all hopefully and ideally designed to directly support the business that you're growing, right? Like, what's the point of the contest otherwise, right? It's all designed to be aligned. And what we've seen, right, with these people standing up here, I think are evidence that we're doing that. And the biggest thing that I was hearing, and I think what's so funny is
And what I think part of what Brett was also trying to communicate is almost every person up here experienced a next step because of having something happen, right? Like, I talked to this person, and the next thing I knew, they were calling me for coffee, and I found another $70,000, right? I was talking to this person, and the next thing I knew, there's another $100,000. And what's interesting is, are we recording? It'd be fun for all of you to go back and listen to yourselves, because you say it in a way that's like, I'm a little confused that happened, and at the same time, well, of course it did. Like, that takes talent to actually do those two things in one sentence. And if you listen to it, every one of you sound like, it's fascinating, right? Like, and then they actually called me for something else. And they actually have money. Well, of course they do have money for me to pick up. So what does that mean, right? The piece that's well, of course there's a next step, is what is so exciting for Brett to hear, right? Because that is the point. That is the culture. That is what we do. The piece that is slightly surprised that that's happening says that there's a little bit of a question and the more, we call it reps in my business, the more representations, the more experiences you get of seeing that the moment you add this value, the doors will open up. And the confidence that is what happens, because there is nobody else to talk to, right? You are opening, in 99.9% of the cases, you are opening up a conversation that no one has ever had with that person in a safe, trusting way. And even for the people who have a planner already, we will tell you that 99% of those folks have never had their financial person talk to them the way that we talk to them. Right? I mean, I literally sat in a room with like family members of mine who were like, I'm totally good, I've got someone, it's all good. And I'm like, oh, well, why don't you just talk to Brett? And at the end of a conversation, they literally say, my rep has never talked to me the way you talk to me. I never understood what they were actually doing. And so if you're having a conversation with someone, either they've never ever talked to anyone and it's the first time and you're adding value, or they've actually talked to someone and that person has never talked to them like another human being could even understand what's happening with their own money. And so the moment someone hears that and feels it, they're like, floodgates, right? And so the skill set is, how do you have the conversation in a way that opens that door, that creates that trust and confidence? Because the moment you do it, game over, right? And they will refer everybody and their mother and their cousin because of the value that they received, right? And so Dorinda got to see, right, firsthand, working with Wave, how that's done, right? Brett was telling me a story yesterday where, can I tell a little bit of the story? So my cousin is actually getting licensed, and Brett was on the phone with him and his wife, and you know, you could kind of tell there was that little bit of resistance by her, you know, not really sure what's going on, a little bit by him, even though he's getting licensed. And Brett's talking to him and talking to them, and he goes into, they're sort of reviewing it, like the F&A process, and he goes into college funding. And the conversation that Brett's been developing, that we've started talking about, that you are going to hear in ad nauseum in the really near future, and that is our view of crowdsourcing college funding for a child, right? Most people think if you talk to a parent and you talk about saving for college, they think about, what do I have to save for my kid? And most parents that we talk to in the middle of this access gap are like, I know I need to do it, and I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and I don't have another dollar. Like, I don't have an answer, right? My kid is going to community college, and it's all okay, right? Or we'll figure it out. Or, right, they're only 1 year old, and I've got time to figure it out, right? It's like all these reasons that folks come up with in their head.
But the moment that Brett, I've seen it now several times, and this team will also be working on it, introduces this idea that planning and supporting college is not just on the parent, but can be viewed as a crowdfunding, crowdsourcing opportunity for all friends and family. There's a weight gets lifted, and there's possibility thinking that opens up. And it's like, oh, I can do that for my kid. And you're gonna help me with the whole plan? And then I'm actually gonna teach my kid about money in the process? Like, how will my kid at 12 years old think differently about his or her own opportunities if they see a statement with $50,000 on it waiting for them? Right? How are they gonna approach school maybe a little bit differently? How's the family gonna approach gifts a little bit differently? And in that moment, and Brett will talk about this more in the future, you actually saw the wall. Right? You start to see that openness. You start to see little questions being answered. And so we look for training on, because it's a skill, right? What are the conversations and how are they delivered to break down those walls? Because the moment they're broken down, the moment someone sees that you're really there for them to add value, they will pick up that phone and say, can I have a cup of coffee? They will pick up that phone and say, I just lost my job. And working your farm system is about making sure that you put the points in place, the relationship in place that we need in place for when that job is lost, for when that baby is born, for when that windfall happens, so that they know there's someone to call. Right? If you are only focused on doing business today, Wade doesn't get that opportunity. There's no way. And so that's why we have to take this expansive view. That's the whole point of the farm system. That's why we don't wait to talk to anybody. But we stair step it so that we're talking to people who have immediate needs. We're talking to people who have needs in the next 6 months. We're talking to people who have needs in the next 5 years. Right? Brett sat down with someone on our team and a family member, and it was like, yeah, we're gonna do the life insurance, and you've got this in this account and this in this retirement account. And in 5 years, this person will retire, and that team member will have $500,000 or $1 million waiting for them. But if we don't sit down now, if we don't build a relationship now, they don't know who to talk to now. That's not there. Does that make sense? Yes.
The one thing is that was a big insight for me that I, for the longest time, was I always thought that there was a certain portion of people that needed our help and a certain portion that didn't. Every single human being needs our help. Every single person. There's not one. I don't care. It will not convince me. That every single person you know needs your help. Every single one.
And that took me a long time to get. Like the number of people in my life that I was like, oh, Brett, no, they don't. Right? The number of people. And like either they don't have someone, right? And we make an assumption that if you have money, you have someone to talk to about your money. And that is just flat out wrong. Yeah.
I know, I'm sorry, this is the last thing, but one other thing, and even if they're getting help, 90% of the help they're getting is good for their advisor and not good.
Right, which is the second point, right? So either they're not getting help, or most of the time, the help that they're getting is driven by the commission that their advisor is getting, or their advisor just like the way that many advisors think that they add value is by actually not sharing what they're doing, because they think it creates perceived value that they have an expertise that you don't. They won't tell you what they're actually doing with your money, because maybe if you understood it, you wouldn't value them as much as an expert. Across the board. And so inevitably, we can do something, right? The first time Brett said to me, our market is everyone, I was like, no, that doesn't exist, right? Turns out, friggin' market is everyone. Then you know what he said to me next? What did he tell me about our competition? What did he say?
We don't have any.
There is none. If you heard that, what would you say, given our experience in business? No way. They teach you not to. Right? No way. Of course there's competition. And man, if we didn't go out there and find out that no one does it the way that we do it for the people who we do it for, it was ridiculous, right?
Yes.
Right? Everyone, vital and no competition. The only thing that is stopping us from changing this world is ourselves. And I'm standing in front of you like Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm right here with y'all. Okay? Right? The only thing stopping us, I want you to hear this. The only thing stopping us from changing the world is ourselves. You cannot sit with this opportunity and have no competition, a market of everybody, and a need that's vital, and have any other reason for us not changing the world. Right? And so that is part of what this contest is about. Because what we've seen is, I mean, here's the thing, right? Dorinda said, someone's like, Dorinda, what did you do? And she's like, I talked to people. Literally, right? What did you do, Dorinda? I talked to people. I opened up my mouth and talked to people. And the next thing I know, they're like, yes, I need your help. Like, could you do that? Could you talk to people? We know Cindy can. She spent a whole week doing it, right? Cindy, in the week, and we haven't really gotten to celebrate that and talk about it a whole lot, because you, right? So Cindy committed, some of us were in the room, to talking to people for a week, right? And what was the sentence that you committed to say to people for 1 week? It's a great one. That's what I want to talk about.
Letting them know what I do.
What do you do, Cindy?
I create financial roadmaps for people to reach retirement comfortably.
Cindy creates financial roadmaps for people to reach retirement comfortably. Pretty good sentence.
Write that down, wait.
Right?
I am
Cindy, right?
That's really good.
Cindy, say it again for everybody. Because you said it many times that week.
I create financial roadmaps for people to follow to reach retirement comfortably.
Not bad. Now, here's the best part. Who did you share that with in that week?
Everyone that came to my lobby on that one day.
Okay, Cindy picked one day in her current job to tell everyone who came through the lobby that when she's not sitting there, she helps people create a roadmap to retire comfortably. How many people about did you talk to?
In that one day, there was 18.
18 people in one day. And of those 18, when we looked at your sheet of responses, how many potential opportunities did you open in that one sentence to those 18 people?
Well, 10 of them actually stood at the counter and talked to me a little bit about it. And other folks out of that were just like, do you have a card? Or do you have, do you have a card? They said.
And did some of them say, wait, you really need to talk to my kid?
Yes. The kids that are 20 and not doing anything or not sure what to do. Yeah. Then I found out they had, that's how I found out folks had kids my kids' age. And I explained to them what I've done with my kids, and they're like, you need to talk to my son. Or my daughter.
How did it feel to talk to people?
Well, it was good to get to know them and find out about their families and to see the interest in their face. Whereas before, we never had that conversation before, but it felt good to be able to let them know that they were kind of like, you do that? They looked a little puzzled and like they didn't know. So
yeah,
I mean, it felt good to open up that door for them.
And the first person you talked to that day, the first time you were going to tell someone what you did, how did you feel right before it?
Well, I remembered this sentence that I was going to say, and I said it, and well, actually, the first girl I told, she was like, I used to have a Series 6 license like years ago.
Why don't you come up here? Come on. I mean, everyone should hear this. Okay, so the first person you're about to talk to, were you nervous at all to say?
Yeah, because
Love it.
yeah,
Maybe just a little, 3 seconds. Okay, so first person you say, and she says what?
She used to have a Series 6 license back in the 80s, but, and she let it go. And I was kind of shocked because I wouldn't imagine that person that I see all the time had one of those. So she goes, we could probably talk the same language now. And I'm like, yeah, it is a language. It was a language to learn. Kind of, it was difficult, but we got through it. So now when she passes by, he's like, he just goes like that. So,
What are you, beta coefficient?
Yeah.
Right? And the 18th person, how did you feel right when you talked to the 18th person? Were you as nervous?
no, I noticed I was smiling more and just more confident and wanted to hear their response. Like, where would they fall on my sheet? Were they interested, or were they like, you're gonna ask me if I had, do you have something to give me, like a card or a flyer or something like that? But yeah, I felt good.
So of 18 people, almost all of them said something encouraging for a future conversation.
Awesome.
So that's the point. Like, isn't that hard? Interesting, right? And so we just start talking. Every single person in this room can say the sentence that Cindy said. Every one of us. It's a good one, right?
I like it.
The sentence that fits you, you go with. And that fits. And you saw the results. And so that's what this is, that's what this contest is about, right? It's about just opening our mouths and seeing what happens. Because it's truly amazing. You know, I remember at convention, it was Hector, that was like, 90 days, for the next 90 days, you tell the story. Tell the story to at least one person for 90 days. And man, if that didn't make a difference in my life. Because you get better at it. You see more responses, right? And inevitably stuff works. And that's what this is about. But we also want to do it on purpose in the right direction, which is why we work on planning. And most people don't know how to plan. It's hard to do. I guess I should take a look at these pieces. It's really not easy to do. It's a skill. And the good news is if it's a skill, then it can be learned. And if it can be learned, it can be mastered. And if it can be mastered, it can be taught, right? And so we've been talking about the way that we plan. And we've been doing this a couple different ways, right? So I do this little triangle. And I start here, and I've got my big D, my directional goal. Where do I want to go? I've got my Y spouting out at the top of my little guy, my little inspiration, right? What keeps me going? And then we say to ourselves, what are the 3 things that if I did, inevitably I would achieve my directional goal, right? And Brett's been talking about this, and they're additive. If I do this strategic goal plus this strategic goal plus this strategic goal, it's going to equal achieving my directional goal. And that allows me to say, and Wade and I even just talked about that this week, for me, what can I achieve? What are the steps I need to take? The actual activities I need to do this week that will move me to my strategic goal. That will make achieving the strategic goal inevitable, so that when I can check each of these boxes, and then I can check each of these boxes, I will know that I've hit my D. And we sat in here and we said, okay, well, what are your individual Ds and what are your strategic goals? And not surprisingly, at the end of the day, we're all kind of in the same boat. In this case, it's 4. If you know your numbers, work your farm system, master your skills, and clear your hurdles, would you achieve your 6 points for October? Yeah, right? That's inevitable. If you hit the numbers you wanted to hit, right? You knew what you were aiming for. If you worked the people that you needed to work to get there, if you had the skill to actually convert them, and you got out of your own way, you would get your 6 points. Does that make sense? So, but for each of us, what the hurdle is what the particular skills we're working on, where we're working in our farm system, and what our numbers are will be slightly different. And that will impact what we do in each of these boxes. But here's something that I wanted to talk about before we get there. And that is, if you don't know what this means, it would be very hard to work it. Right? If you're like, what's a farm system? You can't really work it, right? If you don't know what it looks like, you can't really work it. But do you have to have it memorized to work it? No. And is everyone in here working a farm system?
I don't know what it means.
Don't know what it means. Okay, this is helpful. Yes, wait.
You're working your farm system if you know you are or you're not. Meaning you're interacting with everyone in your farm system and you're working them one way or the other if you think you are or you're not. What I mean by that is you're either doing it on purpose or you're not.
So I appreciate that. However, if you're not doing it on purpose within our particular system,
Right. Yeah.
then you're not actually maximizing
That's fine.
working that
That's
farm
fine.
system. And so that's something we talk about, right? Is good to know. What I wanted to get at is one of the things I have been finding this week in the working the farm system is there seemed to be a little bit of stress around, well, I think I know it, but I don't really know it. And so I've got my hot and warm and lukewarm list because I understand those. I don't really understand the rest of it, so I don't have a full list. And I just want to remind everyone that we have these lists filled out. And you can have a filled out farm system list next to you at all times. And if you actually work with that sheet of paper, which for weeks Wade showed, you will learn it by working with the sheet of paper. Does that make sense? So for anyone who does not, well, one, we'll talk about an introduction to the farm system. But for anyone who's been introduced to the farm system and just doesn't have it memorized yet, right? Maybe you're
Memorize it. Sorry, go on.
I know, but I don't want that to stop you from paying attention to each of the categories. Okay? So as far as I'm concerned, at least 99% of the people in here, maybe 90%, should have it next to them.
Yep.
I will tell you that when I don't have it next to me, I write it out before I start this planning process. Because it's not good enough in my head for me to remember every category and its purpose.
And just so you know, I think I have a farm system, I just didn't know I had it.
Okay,
I
good.
already have
So,
a list of people.
so we can, so we can work on that. So even if I don't have a printed copy next to me, before I go to writing my lists out, I will write a high-level farm system down on a piece of paper next to me. Because keeping it all in my brain, I'll miss something. There's too much, right? So I'll write across and I'll write down.
Look,
And-
just as you go through. And even if you, that's more valuable because we talked about this on Wednesday. You have an opportunity to write it out for you because the more you can write it out, the more it becomes relevant. And if your goal is to teach, the first person you're teaching is yourself.
Now, there are many people who would sit in this room once upon a time, sort of me included, would be like, yeah, I know how to make lists. Yeah, I know how to build business. Right? However, farm system was developed for people like me to begin with, because it's a reminder of how can we categorize our entire market.
So you mean the lineup, just so that
The lineup, right? I talk about it as the farm system because for me it covers the whole thing. The lineup itself, right, as part of the farm system, matters because it's a reminder of how to treat the person in your market based on where they are. And if you just made a bunch of lists based on who you think you can sell insurance to, where you think you can pick up assets, or who you think will make recommendations, you will talk to them in the wrong way to where they are. 99% of the time. I know this because I did it. Which is why my husband, when we first did the lineup, there was not a talking word the very first time that the lineup was created. right? What, are you cultivating? Are you supporting? Are you motivating, right? Our little words that go with it. Those words came to remind people like me that it matters where you put a person and how you treat them. And the reason I bring it up here is because the tactical step that you choose will be impacted by where they are in your system. You don't have to say to yourself, if you know that you have a warm lead that you want to talk to, what is the first thing, if you were going to make a tactical step for a warm lead, what would you say you were going to do next week? Talk to them. And when would you set a time to talk to them? When would you expect them to set a time to talk with you? They're wrong.
Maybe in a week or two.
In a week or two. So you would know just from that statement that I am going to set up a time to talk to this person in a week or two. But if all you had on your list was set up a time to talk about life insurance, what might you think you were going to do? Talk to them today. And then when you go to talk to them today and they say, no, I'll talk to you in a week or two, how would you feel? Discouraged. And would you go to the next step on your list, or would you be like, all right, so let's go grab a drink? Right? Peace.
No, I was gonna say 2 drinks.
Yeah. At the end of the list, you get 2 drinks at the end of the list. It really does matter. It really does work for yourself. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I thought you had a question. It really does matter. It really does work for yourself. So these categories are what every single one of us needs to achieve from a strategic level to hit our directional goal. No doubt about it. Everything we do in here takes 3 steps. When you learned the lineup, what were the 3 steps you took? What it is, what it means, and how it works. Many of us would look at this piece of paper, me included, and go right to writing in my tactical steps. But if we haven't spent any time on what it is of each of these boxes, what it means and how it works, and we just take it spoon-fed from Brett, what is the likelihood that you can recreate this? You can't. So, for the next 5 minutes, because I have not had any single conversation about this with Brett. He handed this to me for the first time 30 minutes ago. True? Have we done this conversation? Not at all. That means y'all need to teach me what the heck these things mean. Because I don't actually know. So, real quickly, I don't know how long it's going to take, but what are your numbers? So we'll raise some hands. Who has seen this equation before today?
Wednesday night.
Wednesday's fine. I wasn't there. Okay, so based on Wednesday, right? And we'll, no right or wrong, we'll clean it up. I need to know. I can't go with tactical steps if I don't know what the heck this means. What does know your numbers mean?
It's like how many people you have to talk to before you might get someone to get life insurance, or all the different categories.
Okay,
It's like
so
a ratio.
okay, so if I have a points goal for October, what's that?
No more ratios.
No more ratios. If I have a points goal for October and I put a 1 under LIA, right, under lock-in advances, then I need to know how many people I would need to talk to hit that 1.
Yes.
Right. Now, if I've got a super hot person who I've already been talking to, maybe it's just 1, right? But if maybe I've hit I have 1 for an IBA, and I don't actually have anybody sitting up there, and so I'm going to work my way down to figure out what are the numbers that I need to achieve that goal.
Yep.
Does that make sense to everybody? And there's an actual formula, right? And we need to know what that formula is. We got to sit down and talk about it. Okay, so that's what know your numbers is. Thanks. I had no idea. Okay. Work your farm system. What's that mean? Derek, what's work your farm system mean?
We look at the whole thing, we look at our now list, and we place people on the list where they are, so we can move them up their steps.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Now, can you work your farm system and achieve your goal if you don't know your numbers?
No, because we have to know where they are from. We're born to one.
I mean, you might get there if you're lucky, right? But this step is kind of additive in my world, right? If you're like, oh, I have to talk to 3 people here, then when I'm working my farm system, I'm focused on who are those 3 people, where are they now, and what am I doing this week to move them one step up?
Did you guys all see what just happened? Like, that is, because Robin doesn't know this, we didn't have this conversation, but that's when you have this process down, what you just saw her put together is how it becomes additive. Like,
How becomes what?
additive. How these principles work together. Can you do that whole thing one more time?
Okay, so who has a copy of the lineup with them? I have it.
Oh, of the lineup?
Yeah.
Oh,
The lineup.
no,
What do you have?
I was gonna say that paper.
Ooh, I'll take this paper.
It's not for that, or is it for that?
I'm wrong.
Is it filled out?
No,
You
not
filled
yet.
out version? Okay, who's got the
Alright,
lineup?
I lied.
I thought this one, I have a copy.
This is a big copy, this is
Let me have this. Thanks. What's that? You gonna draw it for me? That's okay. I just need this, you can email it to me. Okay. So we have this lovely thing here. And I promise you, it was really was created for a reason. Every single one of these categories, I promise, because I have fought every one of them myself. And if you look, if any single person in here has ever had a moment of success in business outside of this room, and I guarantee you, and I will sit down with any single person who thinks otherwise, or with you if you want to go through the motions, I guarantee my friend right there, Tanya, has had significant success in business. And if Tanya actually said in that moment of success, how did she build to that moment of success, it would fit in this lineup. When she did it before, she didn't know that it was part of the lineup. And if I had asked her how she did it, she's actually pretty good about explaining herself, so she would probably get 50% of the way there. When Brett first asked me, I got 5% of the way there, right? I'm like, I just do it, right? Magic Johnson, baby. Right? I don't need to, I got balls in the back of my head. I got eyeballs in the back of my head, right? And Larry Bird over there was like, yeah, but I gotta go teach it to 100,000 other people. I'm like, well, can't we get stickers and put eyeballs? No, we can't. That's why this is created, okay? Take it, use it anywhere else, it will work. Okay, so we've got our farm system. Oh, where's your farm system? That's what we have, right? We got our huts, we got our worms, our lukewarms, our frozens. Yeah? Right. And we know, based on where they are, what we're gonna do. Okay, so if you know that you wanna accomplish something in the know your numbers, right? This is the point. Tony, we did this. I want an IBA. Isn't that what you said last week? Yeah. Okay, this is gonna be a good one. I'm really excited about this. Tony said last week, in this room, I want an IBA. Who was part of that conversation? Don was. Right. Okay, Don, definitely. And when I asked Tony who, what was his answer? I don't know. I don't have anyone. Was that not your answer? Okay, Tony, how did you pick up an IBA?
I looked at my farm system and I saw that she was in my hot. And I'm like, oh, is it a woman suite? And she said yes.
Shut up! That's crazy. I swear to you, he sat here 1 week ago and was like, I have nobody. And John and I said, you turn to your farm system. So he put, I know my numbers, and the answer was 1, right? And in order to turn in an IBA, where did they have to be in your lineup to turn in that IBA? Hot? Do you go from hot to turn in an IBA? Oh, I hear bullpen, I hear draft board. What is it? Let's see.
Now we're just making stuff up. Sort of, yeah.
Sort of, yeah, I'm looking at a piece of paper here.
The draft board feeds the roster.
The draft board
The
feeds the
draft board
roster.
feeds the roster. What feeds the draft board? Farm system. Yeah, but what, the top of the bullpen. The bullpen, right, bullpen,
But wait, there's more.
draft board roster. Yeah? Okay, so the very first thing we said to Joni was, if you want one person on your draft board, you decided you needed how many people in your bullpen? Well, no, you decided back then, you were like, I need a couple, right? You said, I need a couple on my bullpen.
I saw 3 people.
Okay, I needed a couple there, which was even the numbers we talked about. Okay, I need a couple on my bullpen. And where am I, and how many did you have in your bullpen a week ago? No, honestly. Zero, honestly, zero. There were, Tony's like, I'm gonna get a point. And there was 0 on the roster, on the draft board, and 0 in the bullpen, which meant he had to fill it. And so where did you go to fill it? To this Hot and Warm. Now Tony was like, I want to stand up next Saturday and say I got an IBA. And so he had to go to his hot. And he happened to have people there. And he found how many people? 3, which we said you probably needed to deduct the 3 people to pick up the 1. Now, that means that in 1 week, you moved someone from the hot directly to the IBA, right? You're like, this means nothing. I'm so good. Sears is so wrong. I bypass the bullpen. I bypass the draft board, and I go right from hot to IBA, right? Or no? Not how it worked. How'd it work?
You set up the appointment, and then they like and trust you because they said yes. So then you have the access guy conversation. There you fit that. Then you have to be open. If they're open, you have the conversation.
Oh, okay. So you actually went through in 1 week, actually in one conversation?
Yeah.
How many conversations?
3.
3 conversations with one person?
No, 3 conversations, 3 different people.
Okay.
One of them were open throughout the whole.
Okay, so you make sure that in the one conversation, sometimes it only takes 1. Sometimes it takes 25. Right? In one conversation, Tony made sure he's like, oh, they already like and trust me. And had they'd already heard the access cap? And the one you turned in the IBA, they heard the access cap? Okay, so he's like, okay, I've got my whole draft board, they already like and trust me, they already heard the access cap. So now my job in the next conversation is to figure out if they think Primerica could be a positive thing in their lives, and if they ever heard, right? And we were able to do that in one conversation. Good. Yeah, apparently. Did you? You did. Not I could. You actually did. In one conversation, Tony was able to say, I have a 1 here that I want to achieve. In order to do that, I have to get a 1, and I have to get at least a 3. Now I know what to do over here. Tactically, I'm going to look at my farm system and find if I've got 3 hot people. It turns out that he did. Well, but Robin, I don't have 3 hot people. Now I sound like my husband. Tony, what would you have done if you didn't have 3 hot people?
You go to your analysis.
I go figure out who do I do have, right? What do I have? What do I need? So he was like, I got the 3. I know they're hot. It means I can have conversations with them this week. And I'm not going to get in my own way by determining the outcome of those conversations. Maybe they're going to stay hot. Maybe I'm going to actually move them from hot through the bullpen, through the draft board, to an IBA. But I can't know that that's my goal here if I'm not clear about this. And I can talk to people all day long and have things light up because it's just our business, but not necessarily light up exactly what I want to light up. That's the purpose of it. That make sense? Yes. Okay, so now we're out of it. Now, this is an interesting one because it's like, okay, so I know my numbers, I know who I need to talk to, and now I need to know what the hell to say to them. Were there particular skills that you used to work your farm system? Yes. Right? Well, I figured out I want to pick up an IBA like Tony, and this is what I need, and this is who I have, but I don't actually know the conversation to get them to let me know if they think America could be a positive influence in my life. So what could you do to master that skill this week? What are some things you could do, Doug?
I need to sit with a coach and know what that conversation is.
So one thing is you could sit with a coach to learn that conversation. Maybe you have an idea of that conversation. What else could you do?
Practice.
Practice with who?
Oh, yourself, or video, friend, family.
How about
Teammates.
baseline 30? Right? These are the moments. These are the perfect opportunities to turn to people in your baseline. And those are your friends and family that you've identified and say, you know what? I've got this contest thing going on, and I'm working on this, and I'm working on that, and I really got to get this conversation in. Can I share it with you? Now, how many of them would say, no, you cannot share it with me? Probably not very many, right? So imagine this. You're like, and you've been talking to your friends and family, and you're like, I got this thing going on. Can I just share this with you? Now, if you share it, what do you think could come up?
Interest in either help or what you're doing.
Could it move them forward at the same time as you're increasing your skills? Yeah. Could you get valuable feedback before you go have that conversation with the person you're planning to have it with? Yep. That'd be kind of cool, right? This is where we can get additive, and this is where what does it mean to master your skills comes in, right? We think of master our skills as like, we tend to think of it as a solo practice, I find, right? I master my skills by myself. I watch a video, it's a very solo experience, and yet we say in here, this is a great way to we can do more together than we can apart, right? Main Street thinking says I can do it myself. Possibility thinking says I'm going to reach out to all my resources in order to do it bigger, better, faster. Okay? So you've now, by knowing my numbers, I can figure out when I'm working on my farm system. That tells me what conversations and skills I need to master in order to be successful in working my farm system. And so everyone in here will have one or two things, right? What is the most important, and Wade and I talked about this week, what is the most important skill for you to convert what you're trying to convert? Right? For Tony on that idea, the most important skill is how do I get through the 4 check boxes to move them to the bullpen and from the bullpen to the draft board to get the idea. Okay? So now I'm like, oh, okay, wait, I'm doing good. Now, if you, well, this is the best, and this is why there's 4. Because the 4th one is like this guy over here on all of us. Right? He's like, right, stop touching me, stop touching me. Actually, in most cases, it's like that brother or sister who's like, right, that the little thing right there, like, stop touching me, like, I'm not touching you. Okay, so I know my numbers. From my numbers, I've identified exactly who I can talk to on my farm system to move towards it. You might not have 3 people like Tony does, but you might have 4 people who are on your warm. And you can look at how do I move them? There's something you can do to get there. Now you're like, what conversation? What are skills I need to convert what I'm trying to achieve? Now I've got that. Now if you have your numbers and you know who you're talking to and you know how to talk to them, what is the only thing that could possibly be in your way if you don't do it? Talk yourself. Now here's the interesting part and the reason why it's sitting here. Because there are some people who would think, well, shouldn't that be way over here? Don't I need to clear me first? You know why it's sitting down there? Anyone guess? Why wouldn't I be clearing myself first?
You don't know what it is until you get all the other stuff in order.
You don't know what it is. I said to Brett, what's our meeting for today? Just a couple days ago, and he was like, I can't see it yet. Can't see it yet. That means that he hasn't, the steps haven't come up yet for him to be able to see what we needed to accomplish in this meeting. Same thing with clearing our hurdles. it's going through the exercise that you realize what hurdle you need to clear. Well, I couldn't come up with my numbers. Maybe there's a hurdle there. Well, I have no one on my hot and warm, and Robin said, you know, if I have no one on my hot and warm, well, I have nothing else to do. Maybe there's a hurdle there. Well, I know exactly what to do, but I can never convert. I can never have this conversation. I mean, Tony has those conversations all the time, but I have no idea what to do. Maybe there's a hurdle there. Well, I actually had all of these in place, like Tony last week, but didn't actually believe he could pick up the idea. And what I said to Tony last week was, what is the difference between Tony now and Tony the first week he joined our team? But what were you? Fearless. The first week Tony joined our team, he didn't have any preconceived notions stopping him from asking for whatever he wanted and whatever he thought was going to work. And up until that conversation last week, Tony was getting in his own way with his own belief of his own capabilities. And he was actually worried about asking too soon for something. If we didn't have that conversation, Tony would have been like, okay, so I'm on this step and I'm gonna have this one conversation. And then I have to go back 5 more times before I can ask for the idea. But when you add in, like moving away that hurdle, moving through that hurdle, Tony's like, oh wait, I know that conversation. Oh, this is going the way I wanted it to. I'm hearing what I'm supposed to hear. It's safe to have the next conversation. I remember the next conversation. Oh, wait, they said that word that Brett says they would need to say in order for me to know that I can go to the next conversation. And then I'm like, oh baby, home run. I'm sliding into home. And it's okay because I know that they're not gonna like put the catcher in front of me and block me because I cleared it. I've cleared the path already. Does that make sense? So I recognize I spent a lot more time on this than we were necessarily planning, but if you don't know what each of these things mean and how they work together, my concern was that you would be putting in tactical goals that wouldn't actually achieve what you wanted to. And then what happens, because we've seen it many, many times, myself included, is you actually do your tactical steps and you don't achieve and you're like, oh no, that shit works. And that would be tragic. Does that make sense? And so that was really important to me and truthfully, and I hadn't been through it, right? We have to know what it means. We have to know how it works in order to make sure we have the right plan in place. Questions, comments, right? This is collaborative. Anything new? Any new insights from Wednesday to today based on this conversation?
I think for me, knowing that I have lukewarm, almost hot, right in front of me in my classroom. They asked me about how it's going. I'm telling them I was on appointment. They asked about it, yet I haven't sat down with any of my own stuff. I have one who's a realtor who said, "You need flyers, I'll put them out in my open houses, let's do a workshop." I'm like, yeah. And so I think my hurdle with that is, what if I mess up? But they don't know that if I sit down with them. So that's my this week by next Wednesday, I will have sat down with my 2 assistants. That's my promise to you guys, my accountability.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's the first step. Wade, insights. On your man insight guy. Man insight guy.
Insight
My
guy.
insight guy.
Oh, your insight guy.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think that Brett talked about how it builds, each one of these areas builds on itself. So if you're working in one, you're actually working on the other 3. When you start working on all 4 of them together, that's when you start to get results in your business. So if you're not working all 4 of these, then the results won't necessarily come because all 4 of these are the requirements for results. And you can get confidence in any one of them, and you can use that confidence to start to do one of the other areas. And so that's the stair step. But until you are doing all 4 of these, that's when you can start to have an expectation that results are inevitable.
Yes. And 4 could sound overwhelming, but you just heard what Tony did opt for to have set up 3 conversations. We had 3 conversations and he moved one person to the idea, right? This is not like, oh my God, this is 25 hours of my time just because it's broken down into 4 tasks.
And it's the most, it will be the most cumbersome for you that it will ever be right now. And so like Brett uses the example of learning to swing a baseball bat. So there's 20 different things you've got to think about when you're going to try to hit a pitch or a base with a bat. But if you do it enough times, then you get your swing, and then you have your swing, and that's your swing. And so then you just keep with your swing.
And the sentence of it's okay to be out of sorts and you don't want to be satisfied with being out of sorts is designed around this, because the concept of mastering your skills, it's not I have to have them mastered in order to get them. The contest is designed to create momentum for you to grow your skills so that you can grow a business. And so there's this is supposed to feel out of sorts. Like that's the feeling it's supposed to be. And it's okay that it feels out of sorts, but you don't want to be satisfied with it feeling out of sorts. So it's, God, this doesn't feel comfortable. What do I have to do to master whatever it is that's uncomfortable right now so that I can stop feeling uncomfortable in this conversation?
Derek, anything?
Yes, I have an insight.
I had a feeling.
That's accurate as can be. But I listened to what Tony said over there. And that doesn't take place till we physically decide and set a goal that we really want.
Top line.
That's your directional goal, right? And if you haven't, right, then you're running a hurdle. But that's the key, right?
But that's where I'm going, because a lot of times I want this, I want that, I want to do this, or I want to be successful, I want this. We want a lot of things, but we don't set a directional goal. Until we set that, we're not moving no matter how much we want.
Yes, absolutely.
That's my insight.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. Well, and that is the point, right? Absolutely, right? If you don't have your need to begin with, then you don't know where any of this stuff. Yes.
I think one thing that I learned, it was very important for me, because like I asked Brett, like, how do I know what my number is? And so he did this step, like you can think 100 people. He went down the list, and I honestly thought it would be 8, right? Like that's true. And he looked at me, he was like 8. I'm like, that's where I feel comfortable right now. So I'm like, I want one IBA. So I went to my first appointment, I'm like, didn't happen. Second appointment, damn, didn't happen. What's my third? It happened. I'm like, oh, so it's 3, not 8. And I think you learn your number when you do the appointment. And one thing that I learned is it's not the objective of getting the one, it's the objective of going through the numbers and finding your ratio.
Tony, can you say it again?
Yes.
I need to remember that. Can you say it again?
So last week, I know Robin, and I'm like, I want an IBA. And then she's like, well, how's that gonna happen? So I'm like, well, I want one IBA. So I sat with Brett, and I'm like, look, I have no clue how I'm gonna get my IBA. I want one. And he was like, so we did this step where he's like, you need to take 100 people for you to get one IBA. I'm like, no. So we went down the list. We went from 90 to 80, and then we went to 8. 8 was my comfortable number, rather than like, you really think I'm gonna take 8? I'm like, yeah, I think so. That's where I'm at. That's where I feel comfortable. And that's that. And so one thing that I learned is it's not a matter of so I went to my first appointment, right? And the IBA didn't happen. I went to my second appointment, still didn't happen. Went to my third appointment, and it happened.
So, but I want to stop you for a second. If you're like, okay, it's going to take 8, I'm comfortable for an 8. Then if on the second one it doesn't happen, are you disappointed?
No.
You shouldn't be. If you are, you got a different hurdle of misaligned expectations. But if you're like, it's going to take me 8 on my draft board, and I'm going on draft board conversations, and I'm on 2, and I didn't convert, like that's not, screw it, I'm done, because you're just checking it off, going 6 more to go.
And if you hit 8 and you don't have an IBA, you're like, oh, I have an assessment skill problem.
Which is right, and that's what Tony was just saying. He's like, it's assessment one way or the other, right? Up or down. We can dial it up, we can dial it down, and as we learn where our skills are, right? As you increase those skills, right? And depending on if you actually assess the person in the right place, as you increase those skills, that number can change. Awesome.
It's big.
It's big. Okay, so thank you for indulging me and teaching me what the heck all of this means. I really appreciate it. And now the question is, Is it important enough to you to take the piece of paper, I have extras up here if you don't have it already, and to go home and fill it out and get with your coach to check if it actually, because this is an assessment time, right? Did you assess the right tactical steps to achieve the strategic objectives that you've identified for the directional goal that you have identified for October? Does that make sense? Because we have to let him know it's all about
Access.